Hello everybody. I'm making this presentation for three primary reasons. First, to see if this is an effective way of sharing a presentation right now when we're not meeting so much. Second, to share what I think is some pretty cool information with you. And third, to fulfill an NCOPE requirement that I have to do a presentation or some sort of in-service every quarter. So what I want to share with you is some information that I've compiled on this website. So when I was deciding which program to apply to get a master's in prosthetics and orthotics and enter this field, I compiled a lot of information, probably like a lot of you guys did. I made some spreadsheets about the different curricula and also about the different costs of the programs. And since I did that, I've had enough people ask me questions about it, whether it's prospective students wanting to understand what the difference between the programs is, or current practitioners that just wonder what things are like today, that I went ahead and published those spreadsheets on a website that I made. It's just a real simple little website, ompschools.com. And today I just want to show you the two of the spreadsheets that I have up on that website. So basically, the purpose of this presentation is to answer these two questions. How do the formats and the curricula compare between the schools that offer the degree? And how do the costs compare? So let's start with the first one. How are the formats and the curricula different between the schools? So this first spreadsheet has first an overview of the different schools, and then off to the side a more detailed listing of each class that the schools offer and which semester that's involved in. So I just wanted to start by taking a look. There are currently 12 schools that offer a program. A 13th, the one in Georgia, was suspended, or stopped accepting students, is now being transferred to Kennesaw, and so at some point hopefully that will open up again. But right now there's 12. And here they are off to the left here. So I wanted to start by taking a look at each of them and sort of seeing what the standard is and what the outliers are. So let's start actually just here in the middle with what the standard is. So you'll notice the vast majority of programs require somewhere between 60 and say 70 hours. If we look real quick at University of Washington, those are quarter hours instead of semester hours, and so if you divide it by 1.5, they're more like 76. But you can sort of see this range here of having 60 hours to graduate is about normal, and that includes Eastern Michigan, UT Southwestern, Hartford and Connecticut, California State, Pittsburgh, Alabama, University of Washington. And maybe University of Washington is a little bit higher, honestly. I would suspect that Northwestern is also in that range. While they do list what classes you take, they don't tell you their credit hours. But I would guess it falls somewhere in that range as well. Loma Linda also doesn't publish how many credit hours are required, nor does it publish the classes. But what I'd say about these programs here, right in the middle, the vast majority of them, is they're all offering more or less the same classes, right? You have lower limb orthotics 1 and 2, lower limb prosthetics 1 and 2, upper limb orthotics, upper limb prosthetics, some sort of spinal component, usually some sort of contemporary practice and synthesis course. They usually start off with some anatomy. A few of them have some element of neuroscience. And I'd say that's kind of like the backbone of all of these courses. And then each one, will have some element of research, some amount of credits towards clinical rotations. But honestly, on paper, the curricula between these programs, I'd say all look about the same. Now let's take a look at two of the outliers that have published data on them. So we'll start with Concordia University. So this one, if you notice, is significantly fewer hours. Concordia, first off, is almost entirely online, so you're not required to live at the school. Like it says over here in the format, they have 3 one-week intensive courses where you have to travel to their school, and you're there full-time for a week, and you do, presumably see some patients, do some fabrication. But the other 33 weeks of the program, or the other part of those 2 years, is all online. Now the big caveat here is, in order to be eligible to even do this program, you first have to do one of two things. Either get their get an undergraduate degree that they offer in conjunction with a local community college near them, or sort of validate your technical skills. So really have a very rigorous prerequisite workload to be able to even join this one. And so it's a little bit of a deceptive to look at that and say, oh, 36 hours, this must, and then make some sort of judgment based on that, because there's a lot more required to even start that program. So that's one outlier. Then on the other end, you've got the Baylor program, and you'll notice here, at 129 credits, that's double most other programs, what they're requiring or offering. Now, 43 of those hours are related to residency rotations. And the reason that's important, I think most people are aware that Baylor's program is the one that integrates the residency into the master's program itself, as opposed to all the rest of us get through school, graduate, and then go and do a residency. And there's a lot that could be said about that program and the pros and cons of integrating that. But even if you take those 43 hours out, you're still left with 86 didactic hours. And so, Baylor offers significantly more courses, or in some cases evaluates the courses that they offer as being worth more credit hours. For example, 5 credit hours for a course that somewhere else describes it as 3. So that's a significant difference. It's always hard to say if more credit hours is a better education, or if maybe the more cynical view is a more credit hours is a higher cost. Since typically you're paying per credit hour. But there's some, so that's how I would address, sort of those two outliers there. Like I said, Florida International University, it's a different program as well. It's offered in conjunction with the International Institute of Orthotics and Prosthetics. You're kind of pursuing a dual degree in biomedical engineering and orthotics and prosthetics at the same time. Honestly, there's not a lot of information on their website, and typically their cohort is 5 to 6 students a year. So I'm still trying to learn more about that program, but that's why it's got the question mark. I think those 49 credit hours only represent half of what they're being asked to do. So anyways, I hope that gives you an overview of the sort of curricular differences between the programs. And now, before we end, I just wanted to look briefly at the costs associated with each program. Even though all of us at this point have made it through this stage of our education, I think it's healthy and good to know kind of what's going on and what's required of clinicians coming up today. And obviously there's a national conversation around schools and affordability of education. So just so you know what our field looks like today, there's quite a range, as you can see in this sheet. Currently have these ranked by what is like the total estimated cost, which is represented in this column here, but we'll get to that in just a second. So in this column here represents what each of these schools has published as their tuition and fees. So this is the sticker price of the institution, and you'll see it range. There's a huge range, all the way down from Concordia, which as an online school it's expected to be cheaper. So from around $20,000, and that slowly increments up. You'll notice in-state schools tend to offer slightly cheaper. You can get a cheaper tuition if you're in-state in places until you hit that 60,000 mark, and it goes really all the way up. At Northwestern is almost 78,000, and Eastern Michigan is close to 90,000. Loma Linda is a private university, and so honestly, I don't know if the students that attend that really end up paying that cost, or if it's subsidized somehow through scholarships or something, because that does seem quite high. So that that's a big portion of the expense. And then I've also included this spreadsheet mostly for prospective students to keep in mind that along with what you're paying in tuition, you will have monthly costs of living. So I estimated, using the Economic Policy Institute website and the zip codes that these schools are located in, I've given a monthly estimated cost reduced by 30% of what the EPI recommends, just to sort of model what you might expect to also pay monthly. And when you add those two together, this is what it comes out to. So people can expect to pay, as an estimate, anywhere between $60,000 and, I mean, I'd say, $130,000, $140,000 for a degree. The last two columns are kind of more of a financial literacy push to help people realize that just because you take out a loan for $60,000 doesn't mean you're going to pay $60,000. If there's interest, you'll end up paying more over the course of that loan. But I've found this information to be really interesting, and I think it helps people make more informed decisions. So I thought I'd share it with you. If anybody has any questions or is curious about other elements of these programs, I'd be more than happy to have a conversation sometime when we're in the office. But thanks for listening to this, and I hope you got something out of it.